Welcome back to the Mayverse, everybody. Mayor Reynolds, aka Midnight Mayor, here coming at you with another Deadrop video. It's been a little while. We are getting closer and closer to Deadrop 6, and I know Deadrop's going to be a hot topic, as it always is, with new people who hear about Deadrop at the release of Snapshot 6 for the first time. So in this video, I wanted to do, and I've done a few of these videos, a bit of a lore primer, but we're going to focus on the terminology and the vocabulary of Deadrop, because there's a lot of terms that people might hear, like claw, like variant, like space dust, and people might like, what the heck is this, right? And we're gonna go over all of that. I'm gonna pull most of this information straight from the variant guide on midnightsociety.com, the actual definitions from Midnight Society, the developer of Deadrop, of course, but I'm also gonna elaborate on some of them based on things that we see in game, things that we have learned, things that we've experienced, and so on. So let's not wait, let's get right into it. So first up is claw. A claw is a mercenary that takes contracts or gigs within a refiner state for personal gain or on behalf of another. So a lot of you have heard of this. Claw. What is a claw? Your name by default, if you buy a tower key, starts with claw. A claw is basically any player in the tower, period. There's variants, which we'll get into later, but everybody is a claw. This is an individual, a contractor, so to speak, a soldier that's in the refiner states, which we will define later, in the world of Deadrop, who's taking on quests, taking on missions in the tower of Deadrop, and that's what we all are. We're all claws. So when you hear that term, that's what it means. Cleaners. This one's interesting. Cleaners are the operators of the refiner states, and the refiner states, again, are within the tower of the game. They're refining something called space dust. We'll get to that later. But the cleaners are what you would call, kind of like, think of them as like organized crime, or something like that. The people who are running this operation within the tower, where the claws and variants are going in to loot, to fight, to disrupt, so on and so forth. So the cleaners, what they're going to be once it's implemented, remember Deadrop's a PvPvE game, the cleaners are going to be the hostile NPCs, so to speak, the enemies throughout the tower. Climate wars. This is a big one regarding the setup of Deadrop. The climate wars are an environmental global crisis that led to the creation of refiner states. So think of a world war, but it revolved around the climate, right? The weather, the changing climate of the world, so on and so speak, and it literally changed the environment, and it resulted in the world, the existence that you see, the very dark, gritty, kind of polluted existence that we see in Deadrop. This is the atmosphere of Deadrop, but there was an actual climate wars that led to this, revolving around the climate. A lot of you probably won't hear about this one, but some of you may have noticed that there's a cipher, like a secret cryptic language in some of Midnight Society's communications within the variant guide and so on and so forth. That's called the Codex Operandi. Nothing really crazy there. That's just the name of the language of the cipher that was put together. Next is the Deadrop. And if you didn't know this one is, there's a bonus aspect to this as well. The Deadrop is at the end, not only the name of the game, but it's at the end of the game. If you're the last player standing, all other claws, all other variants, all other players have been eliminated, kind of like Victory Royale, or, you know, you've won the match, if nobody else left, you get to choose loot from the Deadrop. This is like the best loot that is left on the map, and you get to have your choice of it. It's defined as the total collection of unlooted drops from dead claws. The best drop is claimed by the reigning claw. All others are clean, so disappeared, for example. But then there's Dirk Spasm, and this is also very interesting. They define it as petty dreadfuls of unknown origin. If you didn't know this one, Dirk Spasm is the in-game comic series that you can find. Right now there's 16 issues, and you can't read them yet. It's just covers, but they're like little collectibles, and a lot of us think this is going to lead to something bigger. And the head of Midnight Society, Robert Bowling himself, has said that something like a Deadrop comic series could become a reality someday. Next up is Embers, which is one we haven't heard a lot yet, but Embers are defined as weapon manufacturers, modders, and crafters for hire. So these could potentially be like you know, vendors within the game, maybe that kind of thing. They're going to be that revolve around specifically weapon manufacturers, modders, and crafters. Robert Bowling has said they're not really looking at crafting as an aspect of Deadrop right now. But again, as an NPC or something like that, as a vendor, they're crafting, creating weapons or equipment, gadgets that you may use. Those are called, hypothetically, embers. All this is subject to change. Then there's the existence. You've probably heard this before. This is eventually, basically, the generic term for the world of Deadrop, the world of Midnight Society. It's the totality, I can't speak, of the Midnight Society reality. So that means everything Midnight Society is called the existence, which makes me wonder when they say that, will the next game that Midnight Society makes after Deadrop, will that also be part of the existence? Will all of this be part of one overarching Midnight Society universe? Extraction, this one's pretty simple. Deadrop is an extraction shooter at its core, a safe exit from the proving grounds or refiner states, and a quick way to escape alive with one's drops and loot intact. So if you didn't know, Deadrop is an extraction shooter. It's not just a straight battle royale or an arena shooter. This means the objective, several ways to win, but one of those is by extracting, and that means you get to keep your loot. There's multiple ways of extracting right now. I have a video detailing all the ways to extract on Sector 3 cold storage on this channel, so check that out if you need it. All right, eyes is a very interesting and somewhat mysterious one. Eyes are defined as guild leadership and members enlisting embers in the expansion of the existence. The eyes will form guilds that run all the in-universe manufacturing of weapons, mercenaries, and cosmetics used by Claws in the Midnight Society. And here is their logo. Pretty mysterious, right? Not much to know about this yet, but it's gonna be something big in the future, so keep your eye out. Lifelink, these are your basic healing stations that are around the map in Deadrop and you're playing the game. An advanced emergency medical care station, which you can access to treat a variety of injuries and ailments. And when you see them in the game, they look like really cool arcade cabinets, something like this. Maglock extraction points are one of the current forms of extraction in Sector 3 cold storage, the current map of Deadrop. These are a magnetically sealed and secured gate. These high security gates can be activated for an emergency exit during a sector shutdown, but will become permanently locked after extraction. So these look something like this over here. This is the concept art for them. They're big metal gates. They're lit up green when you can use them. If you press the button on it, you'll play an animation that lasts maybe like 30 seconds. Then it will open, and then one and only one person can extract with their loot and get out that way. From what I can see, there's 2 of these every single game that spawn. There's a whole bunch across the map. They're not always in the same spot. They move throughout the map, but that's what a maglock extraction is, if you hear the term. Mod chips, there's a weapon mod in the game right now. If you didn't know, weapon mods which augment the function of weapons to alter the damage, recoil, spread, and fire rate. Right now, there's only 1 in the game. They're highly sought after. They're very rare, but if you look at your weapon, if you inspect it, you'll see that there's a weapon mod slot. I think you're going to see a lot more weapon mods down the road, but if you hear the term weapon mod, that's what we're talking about. Proving Ground initially, currently, has sort of changed maybe. This is like the basic mode for Deadrop testing that we have right now, where Claws, variants, so on, drop in and play the game, right? This is what it was called. Well, as a sector becomes finished, and this was confirmed, shared, whatever you want to look at it, in my interview with Robert Bowling, which is on the channel, go listen to it. It was an awesome time and very informative. Basically, the Proving Ground permanently, as it will be in Deadrop, it's called a simplified kill house version of sectors that are designed by Claws to train for refiner state runs. So the Proving Ground is going to be where future sectors are tested. So forget about it from a lore perspective for a second. As sectors are finished, they will no longer be in the Proving Ground. They will move to the main game. It's going to be 7 sectors altogether. We're going to get to that in a second. But what the Proving Ground is going to be is, think of it as the PTR in other games, right? You're testing a new map, a new sector. That's what the Proving Ground is going to be in Deadrop going forward. It's kind of like a mode or a place where things are tested. All right, Rising Freeze. This is specific right now to Sector 3 cold storage, the one, the map we have right now in Deadrop. Didn't know, here's the definition, then I'll tell you how it works. A severe drop in temperature as a result of cold storage temperature regulators shutting down. A fast spreading fatal frost that will consume all machinery and organic matter until contained. So in Sector 3 cold storage in Deadrop, as the game goes on, the map starts to freeze, and that comes from the bottom, hence the name Rising Freeze, forcing all players upward. So this is not the only sector shutdown mechanic that will be in Deadrop. This is specific to cold storage. We don't know what the other sectors are going to have. Maybe fire, maybe floods, maybe who knows, right? But in cold storage, that's what the rising freeze is it's a freeze that comes from the bottom of the map, and if you stay in it for very long, you're just gonna die. Okay, refiner states. This is a big lore term. Self-governed city-states located in dense metropolises designed to extract and refine toxins from the atmosphere. So these are essentially what you think of. Think of like Dread with Carl Urban, like that big structure. That was a little less industrial, but there was like thousands of people living in it, and it, you know, kind of the government didn't really exist there. It was like a big deal when Judge Dredd went in there. Think of it like that, like a future dystopian. It's a self-governed city-state. It's a giant tower where basically crime syndicates, cleaners, they're extracting toxins left behind by the climate wars, and then they're turning those toxins into a product, likely a drug, and that's what the refiner states, the tower, so on, is. Next up, sector. When you hear the word sector, think of it as a map. It's that simple, but it's a large self-contained area of refiner states which operate independently of other areas of the tower. That's what a sector is. As we know it in the game, think of it as a map, a playable space, an environment. Sector 3, specifically, is cold storage. Is the first playable sector we have in the game and the proving ground right now. The cold storage sector of the refiner state responsible for the processing, packaging, and shipment of refined space dust. I'm going to skip ahead in the alphabet here and talk about space dust, aka dust. This is a street name for the concentrated extract of toxins produced by refiner states, sold for high value amongst organized crime circles. Again, the word drug isn't being used here, but from what we can tell, unless things change, it's essentially a drug. Space dust, these refiner states, they get these toxins out of the air, out of the atmosphere, convert it into a drug. Why else would organized crimes want it, right? That's what space dust is. It's going to play a huge role in the story of Deadrop and in the universe, so keep that one in your mind. Skins is a slang term for combatants of any faction, specifically organic combatants. So when you hear the term skins, that's what they're talking about. I'm going to skip ahead to its counterpart, sins. Yes, I know that can be a little confusing, but this is slang for synthetic combatants of any faction. And in Deadrop, if you didn't know, there's what's called the sin system. So you have essentially 3 lives every time you spawn into a game of Deadrop. Right now, again, who knows what changes down the road, but when you respawn, you're essentially converting to the synthetic version of yourself, or a synthetic avatar. And you'll notice your screen changes a little bit. Again, that could change. It kind of gets like an old school 80s VHS filter to it. That's what sins are. They're synthetic combatants in the Deadrop universe. Okay, stash. This one's easy. This is essentially your inventory. When you extract with items, you can move them to your stash. Right now, the stash is very large. I think I might get changed down the road, but we'll see. And your stash is canonically in your hideout. The hideout is not defined here, interestingly enough, but that is where your player goes back to in between matches. That is where they're going to, that's like their home away from when they're not in the tower doing missions. There's stuff in there. As we last saw it, there's a shooting range, there's a garage. We think there's going to be like NPCs and vendors in there eventually. It's a really cool space, and actually I'll show it to you. All right, so bear in mind, this was from the original Deadrop snapshot very early in the tower. I shouldn't say the tower. The hideout is going to change. There is a look at a tower in the background. This was your initial hideout. Again, going to change, but you can see the atmosphere that they're going for here, which was amazing, by the way. Super lift. This is essentially a part of Sector 3 cold storage at the very top. This is the final way to get out of the map, to get out and extract. This is your last chance to get out. You can actually join other players on this thing or fight it out for the Deadrop and to be the last man standing. But that's your last form of extraction. Canonically, it is a central shipping lift, moving personnel and supplies between sectors. So while right now it is a form of extraction, down the road, this, for all we know, could be changed as a way to get to another sector, perhaps a sector above you, whatever sector that may be when it's implemented. All right, next up are variants, and this is some cool art of variants. It's stylized, but it looks awesome. This is what variants are defined as. You've probably heard this one. Highly exclusive subculture of claws within the Midnight Society. If you don't know, variants in the game are the claws or the players in the game that have lit up visors with a unique design on it. Those designs are one of a kind. So, you know, my visor, my variant, my visor Cortex, which is what it's called. I'm the only person who has that. All these designs on the faceplates are unique. There's only one person who owns them. Those are variants. There's only 10,000 of us. There will only ever be 10,000 of us. These were the initial people who kind of backed Deadrop, who were vetted to test the game, and we have basically in-game identities, and we will always have that in-game identity. So when you see a variant in Deadrop, you'll know this is one of the early adopters of the game. They're kind of special in the Deadrop universe. Next up is VES, which is an acronym. It's Vertical Extraction Shooter, a term used by Claws to describe combat within the refiner state. If you hear this term, this is what this means. Deadrop is an extraction shooter. It's not a battle royale. It's not an arena shooter. It is an extraction shooter. Comparable in some ways to games like Escape from Tarkov, on Showdown, Cycle. It's the most booming genre in the FPS space right now. Again, the main goal is to get in, get loot, and then extract, get out. Deadrop is what's called a vertical extraction shooter. It's the only one really on the market. They're adding extreme levels of verticality to the map. The whole game is being designed with verticality in mind, which actually makes a really, really, really big deal when you play the game and you understand its design. You'll get why it's so important that it's a vertical extraction. Okay, and last but not least, Visor Cortex. It's like we just talked about with variants. This is the lit up display that variants have in the game on your helmet. It's a unique design. And I want to say I do expect down the road as Deadrop launches and we get customizations and so on and so forth, I do expect other people to have various, customization and cosmetics for their own Visor Cortex. But with that said, variants will be the only people who own their Visor Cortex forever. I'm just personally expecting some form of cosmetics for faceplates in Deadrop down the road, like variants, but not quite the same. Okay, that's it for this video, guys. If you have questions about any of these terms, the Deadrop universe, the story, the lore, leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them, as well as some others in the Deadrop universe who are very, very, very helpful. And I've got other videos on the channel that I think you're going to find really helpful. There's one about potential characters in the Deadrop universe, some other lore stuff. Check it out. I've got tons of other Deadrop videos on that channel. This is your #1 source for Deadrop and Midnight Society news on YouTube. So subscribe to the channel. Make sure you leave your questions down below. If you learned something, make sure you like the video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Really appreciate all your support. More Deadrop content coming soon. No further ado, Midnight Mare out. For those of you who didn't know, I am sponsored by Humble Bundle. If you don't know what Humble Bundle it is an online game store where you can buy games and support charity at the same time. You can find it at humblebundle.com. And if you use my link, I am partnered with them. You'll also support my channel and my content at the same time. And they put new bundles on there. Right now, you can buy the entirety of Attack on Titan for dirt cheap, the manga. But one of my favorite bundles is live right now. That is the Best of Boomer Shooters bundle. There's a lot of retro FPSs in here, but there's new bundles all the time, and you can support me and charity and get great games in bundles dirt cheap all the time. So check out Humble Bundle, and you won't be disappointed.